Hi, Richard Lang here. Today we're going to talk to one of my good friends, Lester Velez. He's the director and the co-founder of OPUS. OPUS is the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. Les was formerly the team leader for the Abduction research team, which is now what MUFON calls its ERT, the Experiencer Research Team. He presently holds the position of a research consultant. Les has been actively involved in UAP and paranormal research for 30 years, and I'm proud to say he's also an advisory board member for Aerospace Research Operations. Aerospace Research Operations is an organization that's domiciled in Virginia and registered with the State Corporation Commission. Also known by the acronym AEROPS, which is a scientific research cooperative that's focused on unidentified anomalous phenomena and the associated high strangeness and paranormal effects that typically result after an encounter. Les, it's good to talk to you. I'm glad we're getting a chance to talk again. One of the things that I wanted to do is ask you to talk a little bit, about Opus and what the function of the organization is, and like a little bit of the history, maybe. Can you do that?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. It's people like yourself that are very important to disseminating the information that's been suppressed for so many years. And so thank you, thank you, thank you
Well,
for
thank
what you
you too.
do.
We really were looking forward to having you on here, and of course, Les is on our advisory board for aerospace research operations too, which is nice
Uh,
to.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm honored. I'm honored. Anyway, so OPUS. Well, first of all, OPUS stands for the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, which covers the paranormal covers a lot of territory. And we were founded in 1994 after a rather interesting event that took place. Um, it was probably, let's see, it was probably in like 1992 or three, actually, where a doctor friend of mine, Dr. Eugene Lipson, who actually also was the co-founder, unfortunately, Gene has since passed away.
Yeah.
Um, I was written up in an article in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. I had gotten a call from MUFON headquarters. They said that there was a reporter in the area, and this is when I was living in San Jose, California, that was looking to talk to somebody about the UFO phenomena and what we were doing to investigate cases. And so this reporter came out and he interviewed me, and he actually wrote a very nice article. And subsequently, a woman from Carmel, California, called me, got in touch with me, and said, "I'd like to understand what's going on with my brain when I'm in contact with these off-earthly entities." And I'm sitting there listening to this, and I'm going, "Oh my goodness, I have no idea how to possibly help this woman." And then she said, um, "I'm working with an emergency room doctor down here," and that got me really interested because Eugene, Dr. Lipson, was a doctor, and he was interested in meeting other doctors that were interested in this phenomena. So
Right.
I convinced him finally to let's go down and meet this woman and this doctor, and let's see what happens. So we walked down there or drove down there, and we went into her house, and this picture on the wall got my attention, and it was a picture of her standing on the back of a vessel in beautiful crystal clear blue waters. And I said, "What's
What do you
this
mean a
all?"
vessel? You mean
Oh,
like?
it was a boat, a
Oh,
boat,
okay, okay,
yeah, a rather
okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
large boat. Yeah. And I said, "What were you doing down there?" And she says, "Well, I was helping these treasure hunters." And I said, "Well, how were you helping these treasure hunters?" She says, "Well, I was in touch with the captain of the galleon that had gone down." And I said, Gene and I looked at each other and said, "Oh my goodness, this is pretty wild." Okay. So we walked in there, and
Can
that,
me? Did she mean that she was in touch like psychically with him?
yes,
That
yes.
he's already
Oh
down.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
He
okay,
was
okay.
the Spanish galleon that had gone down. So somehow
Right. Okay, I'm
she
with you now. Go
connected with
ahead. Go
him.
ahead.
So that afternoon, she started to tell us stuff about ourselves that there was no possible way
Yeah.
that she could know these things. And then we found out that she had had a near-death experience,
Mm.
after which time she became very psychic and started to have these connections.
Yep.
And she started to write these manuscripts about the various entities that she was in contact with. Matter of fact, one of them was Jesus.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was the most incredible afternoon. Anyway, long story short, we came away from that afternoon and we said, how can we possibly help people like this? Okay. And at this point already, I had done many investigations, and the all of them turned out to be not just people seeing these objects, but also saying that they had contact with these non-human intelligences.
Right.
And so I finally came to the conclusion that there's got to be some way to help these people. And I started to facilitate a support group in my office. I was in business. I was in business, and so
Right.
I had a nice conference room, and so I would bring these people in, and we'd start talking. And oh
Wow.
my God, the stories that would come out were incredible. Were absolutely incredible.
Yes, they are.
And so eventually, it came to the point where we got a group of people together, the original founders of Opus, and we officially became a 501(c)(3) in 1994, recognized by the IRS, which always cracks me up. Paranormal and the IRS. I don't know how that goes together, but
Hey, when it
anyway.
comes to the money, they're as long as the money's coming, they don't care.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So our mission basically is to help people, simply put, having paranormal experiences, whether it's spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, UFOs, contact with non-human intelligences, poltergeist activity. Although, having said that, our main focus over the years has seemed to focus in on people that have been contacted or having experiences with non-human intelligences. And we also have working relationships with other organizations that, for instance, look at poltergeist activity, and they're more
Mhm.
more adept at that. So we've over the years seemed to have focused on the abduction experiencer phenomenon. So what we do now is we have three things that we can help people with. Number
Yeah.
one is this totally confidential online, international online support group. We have almost 500 people now from around the world that are talking 24/7 with one another about their experiences, their cases, asking questions. I had this happen. What can I do about it? Things of that nature, which turns out to be very helpful, not only in the information that they exchange, but they also understand that they're not alone. That
Right.
this phenomena is happening to other people,
Right.
and that is a great calming influence for them, because of course these are ontological shocks that happen to these people that are incredible, and so not to be able to talk to your spouse, for instance, or your kids, or your fellow workers, or your clergy, because you're afraid that you're going to be thought of as being crazy. And in a
Right.
lot of cases, these people can't talk to anybody. They're so isolated, which is terrible. And they
Yes.
develop PTSD and things of that nature. So the second thing that we do is, of course, to uh, have a referral network of mental health practitioners and hypnotherapists, which are vetted. And most of these people have had experience working with these people that have had contact, which is really important, because for the first time when you get involved with a person that's going to tell you, well, I've been on board the craft, which I have to tell you a story about a situation where supposedly I was on board.
What happened?
They can go to somebody that is familiar with it and is not going to either recommend drugs that they need to take or things of that
Right.
nature. You have a neutral listening ear that is not going to make any judgment, but to be there for these people. And of course, we have the hypnotherapists as well that can dig down deeper if people need to do that. Um, and then the third group is sort of a triage group, which is our EST, our experiencer support team, which is basically a lot like the ERT, the MUFON's ERT,
Right.
Experience Resource Team, which actually came about through me many years ago, when in fact I was it was James Carrion at the time that I was talking to, and I said, "You guys are missing a boat on these people that are having abduction type experiences.
Well, back then they were when I first started doing this, MUFON, they didn't want to deal with the abduction. It was totally taboo. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly." And so I told him, I said, "Look, my organization is here to help you. If you don't want to look at this kind of thing." So what happened was they started to forward me the phone calls that were coming in to headquarters. And so I was dealing with these people. And then we set up this protocol and how to start working with these people. And eventually Kathleen Martin came
Kathy.
in, yeah, and set up that organization, which is now the ERT. And so that's great. It finally, the light bulb went off, that
Yeah.
we need to be looking at this kind of thing. Um, I'm going to just a little aside here. One of the support group meetings, a person said to me, "Oh, I've seen you before." And I said, "Really? Where? At a UFO conference?" She said, "No, no, no. I saw you on board the craft." I said,
Uh-oh.
"I said, really?" And I kind of blew it off. I didn't
That
think
I've
much
heard
of
that story many times, but go ahead. Yeah.
it. And then it was like a year and a half later that another person, totally different person, said the same thing to me. "I seen you before." And I said, "Where? UFO? No, no, no. You were sitting on this bench naked on board the craft and you were freaking out and they told me to go over to you to calm you down." Well, shit. At that point, I said, I said, "I'm going to go get regressed and I'm going to see if, because I had no conscious recollection of that. None whatsoever.
Wow.
No, any kind of effect. I found out multiple past lives. I had multiple past lives after these three regressions. But nothing like being on board a craft. At least I wasn't able to get down that far, or they blocked it so well. And then I talked to a person subsequently that said, "Well, maybe this person somehow tapped into a past life of yours where you were abducted." So, this time dilation and changes, and it's the phenomena has got so many intricate things that are going on that we just don't understand.
Well,
Um,
that is common where people say that they saw their people there when they were in the process of being abducted, you
yeah.
know. And what you said about being naked, people come back and their clothes are on inside out and stuff like that too. That's another really
Yeah. Or
unusual.
somebody else's clothes,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. And so this one case that came in to us was a couple. And a matter of fact, you started talking in our earlier interview that I did with you. um, was a young couple in Santa Cruz, and they were amateur pilots, and they uh, they were picnicking in a park north of Santa Cruz, and they were coming out of the park. It's a very hilly
Hmm.
area, and they noticed this light over the ocean, and it caught their attention, and it got
That's how it
brighter,
starts. Yep.
get brighter and brighter until it literally was over their head, and it was a triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet, and lights on the corners,
Yep.
totally silent, and it just basically went into this canyon behind where they were, and it just sat there, doing the butterfly thing. It's kind of moving around like this,
Hmm.
type of thing. And they noticed another light, and this craft came in, same thing. The first craft that came in, they were looking at it. The second one, they felt it was looking at them and they became frightened. And then they noticed that there was like 5 more lights over the ocean. This is when they decided they were going to get out of there. And this area is very steep, and during the day it's dark. And this was already at dusk. So, and it's rocky, and they felt like they were on automatic pilot all of a sudden. And they felt
Oh,
like they were drifting down out of there till they got to their car. And that's the last thing they remember until 3 hours later, they're sitting in a restaurant, which is normally only 10 minutes away from where they were, have no idea how they got there.
yeah.
And they subsequently developed a rash. And they went to the doctor, both doctors, her doctor, his doctor. Excuse me. None of the doctors could come up with any logical reason what that rash was about it. One of them said, well, it's not poison ivy or poison oak, and there's plenty of poison oak in this area. And the other doctor said, well, maybe some reaction to something, but I have no idea what it is because I've never seen anything like this. They took a picture of it and they showed it around to the people in the support group. And almost without exception, they all had a similar rash at one time.
Wow. Where
So
was it?
the rash was in the groin area.
So I was thinking you were going to say, yeah.
And so one of the people in a group says, I think I know what that's from. And I said, okay, what do you think it's from? Well, it's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in to sanitize you, to sterilize you. So sanitize you. And it's a reaction to that. I mean, it's like, are you
Wow.
kidding me? So, all right, here's this couple. This is over 30 years ago, right? That this happened. I got a call about 3 months ago from them.
The
They
same
tracked
people.
the same people.
Wow.
The woman in the group says, I remember now that I was dipped in some kind of fluid, but she didn't remember that before. So
Wow.
the memories are coming back. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I just get goosebumps telling that story.
I know,
It's
I know. I wanted to ask you about omega 4 too. We talked about that earlier.
yeah. Well, what we done have to back up to the omega-3 study, which was a follow-on to Kenneth Ring's study about uh, you know people having these types of experiences. And I mentioned earlier some of the findings that we had, and I guess in our last interview, so but I'll mention it again here, that the omega-3 study, what we found, we took 71 people that were claimed that they had contact with these non-human intelligences and
Hmm.
50 people as a control group. And we had 13 different psychological instruments. These are questionnaires, basically, that we had these people take. And what we found that none of these people had a psychopathology. They were not fantasy prone. Their worldview certainly changed. Uh, that these entities were kind of not necessarily malevolent or benevolent. It's kind of something in the middle. Um, and that there was a difference in the temporal lobe activity of the experiencers, which is something that certainly needs to be looked at further, which we did not at that time have the capability. And this was a study that was funded by MUFON back around 2007.
So when you
So
said that they had the instruments you were using were like tests, not like
yes,
encephalograms or something like that.
right,
Okay, okay, I'm
exactly,
with you. Okay, okay.
exactly. So then what we decided just recently, a couple of years now, is that we wanted to do another follow-on to our study, uh, and look at it a little more deeply, uh, more questions, different questions. And also what we did is we went out to therapists that are working with these people to get their reaction. And that full report, okay, is on the OPUS website, opusnetwork.org. If you go into the documents and articles section, you'll find the omega-4 phase 1 uh, information there, which we and I had one of our board members, Russell Scalpone, is a clinical psychologist, and so he's basically been the spearhead on this to look at this data. So if people are interested in looking at that data, it's interesting. You know, we talk about the fact that yeah, the grays are probably the number one culprit in a lot of these abductions, and you know whether it's the other entities are a reptilian or a Nordic or uh, uh, praying mantis type.
And some of them look like your next door neighbor too, right?
Yeah, that there must be some kind of a like a Apple store out there, but it's a gray store where all these entities pick up these grays and have them do the dirty work, because basically I think they're afraid of us because we're a pretty violent race. Uh, so
Do
and then
you did you
yeah,
think that the gray one of the things I wanted to ask you about was the trends.
hmm,
And and also going back to that study, we were talking in the other podcast about you said that some of these people were realizing there's a lot of like poltergeist paranormal stuff that occurs with these people.
that's right.
And when we talked about that, that's one of the things that I think that we missed. Like when I wrote my first book, that there should be a chapter in there that says now go back a year later and interview them and see what kind of paranormal experiences they're having, because that's very, very prevalent now. And I learned that from the Bass guys, but um, in the past we didn't like think about that, where once you're done with the investigation, you're done. And now there's quite a lot of evidence indicating that there's this paranormal follow you home kind of hitchhiker kind of thing that happens that, and you're seeing the same thing apparently.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the paranormal, it encompasses so much that we don't understand. And you know, years and years ago, people talked about angels and demons, visiting us.
Yeah.
And it's still happening. There's been many cases where people have had contact, and then all of a sudden there's this little ghost boy that walks through the bedroom and into the next room, and then an evil demon that puts scratch marks down a person's back while they're standing there talking to somebody. I mean, it's just really bizarre stuff,
Yeah.
and types of things that seem to happen along ley lines. This one particular case that we got involved with, this woman's house was evidently they brought somebody in, and they understood that there was a ley line running under the house, and
Wow.
it ran down the street, and like three other houses were on the same ley line, and they all were having problems. They were
I
all
don't know how
having.
you test for something like that, but there's people written books about it.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah, and these are there's so many areas of the phenomena that it's just mind-boggling, and that it's a different reality that we don't understand, and we're trying to understand it, but it's very difficult because, you know, from the scientific standpoint, is it ever going to be possible to really understand it other than
I
just
hope so.
knowing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you do you um one of the things I wanted to ask you about is you're like more in contact with this on a daily basis or monthly basis. I am. What are you seeing as the trends? I interviewed a couple of the interviews I've done recently. People are saying that there may be as many as 1% of the entire population that's been abducted or had some kind of close encounter. And that is like that's a hell of a lot of people. Uh,
Well, I have my own personal theory about that.
okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
No, number one, that I believe we've all had an experience, whether we consciously remember it or not. It's just part of the fabric of how this universe, whatever you want to call it, works. Um, and back in the day when Bud Hopkins and got Bigelow
I'm
to uh, fund that Roper poll, there was like 6 million people in the United States that were having an experience
yeah.
back in those days. And now fast forward, and it's an international phenomena. I I firmly believe is that whether we consciously remember it or not, we probably all had some type of an experience.
Well, one of the things, like when I was doing my research early on, I told you had been involved. I started out basically, out of college, scientific education, pilot's licenses, all that. And when I first started investigating these cases, I talked to these people and it scare the hell out of you. This won't be telling me something. And I'm like, yeah, I got to get out of here. This is, and then you go interview another one and the same thing and another. And after about eight or nine of them, you're like, oh, these guys got to be telling the truth because all the little details fit together and they don't know each other. And so then you go through what we call that, your perception of reality changes. But then it seemed like for a while there, I was getting a lot of cases where I was working on that were abductees. And then for a while, it got real quiet. And I wasn't sure if they just figured out a way to keep it quiet or if it was really quit happening or not. What do you think? Like in the last 10 years, are we still seeing the abductions like we used to, or they're
I believe so. I
okay,
believe
that's what I
so.
thought
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. And I think too that what's happening is that because of the congressional hearings that are going on, the shows that are on the History Channel, and the podcasts that are happening out there, that people are getting, you know, more comfortable with the fact that there is something going on.
Yeah.
And so just that fact alone, these people, if they before that they didn't have a place to turn or listen to something, or now they do. And so they're probably more relaxed about the whole situation, and are probably trying to solve it a little bit more on their own, instead of having to, cry for help. Uh,
Yeah. I
but
see that too when I'm dealing with people in the general public. The media is probably the worst as far as that goes. We went to the SCU conference last year and Russ Colhart was
mhm,
the speaker. And people were asking him like, well, why is the media not talk about this or what's going on, And he said
mhm,
that if you look at the major television networks, they're all losing money, their stocks are going down. They don't. He said, he said this he goes, I did an interview with Gary Nolan and we
mhm.
got 3.5 million views on that interview. And I'm thinking the last time that happened was when Walter Cronkite told everybody Kennedy had been killed. You
Yeah, yeah.
that's the meat. He's saying that this kind of stuff, what we're doing is where the power is now, and that's
Mhm.
what people listen to. They don't trust the media anymore.
I
So
believe that's absolutely true.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
absolutely
But
true.
there's more of it in the last, I've talked to, and I'm sure you probably same thing that, we've been doing this a long time. And in the last year or so, there's more stuff that's been opening up than there has in the last 20 years. I mean, it's just like it's people that were keeping real quiet and keeping everything playing their cards real close to the chest. They're on TV, they're on podcasts talking about it now.
Uh,
And
what's really gratifying, I think, is these congressional hearings that are so
yes,
bipartisan. You got
yes.
the Democrats and Republicans agreeing on something. Holy crap.
Yeah, and they're both beating up some general for lying to them about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We're lucky we live in a time like this now, Rich. I would have never thought we would be this far along, but it's still that next hurdle that we got to get over to,
Well,
close
the
the loop.
one of the things I think is the big issue is the technology, that's going to come out. And I remember, a long time, like in the late 90s, I had lunch with Dr. Greer up in Charlottesville. And I remember him saying to me, if I came here today and I put a suitcase or briefcase down on this table and I told you there's a device in there that could power every house within 500-mile radius of this table and run for 100 years without any renewable energy and it wouldn't put out any pollution, he goes, what do you think that would do to the economy? Well, at the time, I was running a trust department up the street, and that's what we were doing, investment management. And back in the 90s, the petroleum industry predominated our economy, the petrodollar and all that. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, that's going to put them right out of business. And he goes, that's why you don't have it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
basically, that was it, is that they suppressed this technology. And, that when it comes out, it's going to cause a lot of problems, economic problems in What Chris Mellon, I quoted him in my
Mm.
book, and basically that's what he was talking about, this catastrophic disclosure.
Mm.
And if it happens, what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to pawn this off over the next 5 or 10 years to slow it down. But if we get a catastrophic disclosure, it's going to have a dramatic impact on the economy. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's holding them back is that they're afraid of what's going to happen if they tell the truth. No,
Well, it's interesting. I had the opportunity to have lunch with Lou Elizondo.
hmm
This is right before COVID shut everything down.
yeah,
And he was in this area here where I am interviewing Terry Lovelace, who wrote the
mhm,
book Incident at Devil's Den. This is when he was in the Air Force and he and a buddy had a most dramatic encounter in abduction uh,
yep.
on this massive craft. Um, and Lou was there to talk to him about that case. And this was supposed to be broadcast on Unidentified. And of course, that interview never got released. And I think Chris Mellon was involved with squashing it because I think they didn't want to go down that road yet. They
No,
wanted to stick with the nuts and bolts aspect of the phenomena before we get into the contactee part of it, which I think is going to come. And when that does come, I think we're going to be deluged. Our organization will be deluged with people looking for help because it's all of a sudden going to be uh, out there in a big way. So,
yeah, well, that's what Mellon said. Is he said initially it's going to be catastrophic in terms of, there'll be a lot of global economic, serious economic problems and other things, but in the short term, but long term, the benefits to humanity will be unbelievable with the technology that's going to end up being released to the public. So, um, I think that's what recently Danny Sheehan had done some interviews, and that's what he was kind of saying that they're all that he's talking to all these insiders down there in Washington. They're trying to figure out what to do, and the economic part of it's a big part of their worry is what's going to do to the economy. And so we'll have to see. But I mean, even with the drones, that Russ Coulthart had done a number of shows about that, and they were trying to make it like, oh, it's in New Jersey and mostly in New Jersey, New York, and he's like, no, I'm getting people from all over the world telling me they're shutting airports down in Russia and China. And I mean, come on, think about it. They shut Wright-Patterson Air Force Base down for a whole day one day because, quote unquote, we were being swarmed with drones. That's the headquarters for the Air Force. Come on, man, that's got to be embarrassing. And then Langley, they moved all those fighter jets out of there because of the drones. So
right.
there's
Yeah.
but and then the press secretary's like, oh well, the FAA knows all about that and everything's fine. And then Baker and those guys are going, wait a minute, no, 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 they didn't know because they hired us to go out and figure out what was going on, and we didn't know what was going on. So the whole thing is kind of like a conundrum, what do you call it?
Conundrum
Yeah, yeah.
wrapped up in a mystery.
But
No, it's scary to think about it because, if it's not the Russians or the Chinese, if it's them, if you will, then what's the purpose? What's going on now with all these incursions that are going on? Why now? Why now? What's happening?
Well, I think that's part of it. I mean, we talk about the term non-human intelligence now is the
Mhm.
is the code word. And they used to say extraterrestrials and and now we're like, wait a minute, extraterrestrial, it connotates that it's some coming from somewhere outside our solar system and that where they're coming from. When the fact is that some of them are coming from other dimensions and some of them are coming from other time constraints and some of them could be interterrestrial. So saying non-human is a much broader term that's more accurate in terms of less limiting as far as what
Oh,
you're trying to convey. And so that now it's non-human intelligence. But I think that in itself tells you that there's you know they know more than they want to tell you right now.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Somebody, I think, knows what's going on
I do
to a
too.
deeper degree, but they're just still not able to, for whatever reason, or want to put that out there yet. So
Well, in
we'll
the other
see.
show, we were talking about the non the mil MyLabs or MillLabs, whatever you want,
Hmm.
however you pronounce
Yeah.
it. But now there's like this undertow where they're talking about some kind of agreements that may have been made. And I saw an interview a few months ago where somebody way up in the intelligence community was talking about, basically said that the United States is, he said people in the United States government that are way high up in the bureaucracy that are not elected officials have had direct contact with two different societies. And he said both of them, their prime objective was the eradication of nuclear weapons on this planet, which is interesting.
Hmm. Well, that would certainly calm things down if nobody had nuclear weapons. The idea that Putin may resort to throwing some nuclear weapons at poor old Ukraine, or things
The
would
other
not
way
be in the
around.
picture. I mean, or yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that it's in line with what I think we were talking about in the other podcast about these guys that are, have come forward, and like you and I were saying that, there's a number of these interviews, a half a dozen guys that I've heard over the years that said that they working in these missile silo bases and that something comes over the field, basically shuts the place down. And I thought that might have been limited to 4 or 5 occurrences, but that Robert Hastings was on the Good Trouble show last week with Matt Ford, and he was saying that it like happens all the time, a lot, and that they're lying to the Congress about it. And if they had any clue of how vulnerable we are, they wouldn't be. They'd be getting real nervous about it right now. So,
Oh, absolutely,
yeah, I've not
absolutely.
read that book yet, but I featured it, and that's one of the things on my list to do. But apparently, it's quite extensive in terms of the occurrences on nuclear, in nuclear missile bases and around nuclear weapon storage facilities and things like that. So,
We talk about evidence. The debunkers talk, well, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Blah 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 blah.
right.
And there's been so many videos, okay, taken by our own military that have been leaked, okay, that shows this craft uh, intercepting a missile launch and and
Yep.
and blowing it up. Uh, that okay, that's one of them. And then you look at the contactee situation where there's implants in these people. These things are bizarre. They're very bizarre.
Have
I
you
don't
run
know.
into a lot of that? I remember what was his name? Roger.
Lear, Dr. Lear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dr. Lear.
yeah.
He was taking them out. And he said like when they take them out and they put them on a table, they dissolve or something. They have a self-destructive capability.
Well, I tell you, one of the things that I talk about, let me read some to your viewers here, some of the things that Lear came up with. First of
Yeah.
all,
I
in
met
these
him one
implant,
time in a conference.
yeah, he was a nice guy, nice
He
guy.
we were having dinner at one of the conferences, and some lady passed out on the floor.
Oh,
And
jeez.
I went over because I had CPR training and everything. I went over and he came over, and the two of us were trying to get her back going again. But that's how I met him. It's kind of funny.
That's
But
an
she was
interesting
turned out
way
to
to
be
do
okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. So anyway, what he says in his book, Alien in the Scalpel, no inflammatory rejection reaction by the body to these foreign objects. Now, you get a splinter in your finger right away,
Swells
you
up,
know
gets
it.
sore. Right. Yeah.
It's nasty. No visible portal of entry. Collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object. An outer coating of ceramic biological material. A metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue. The emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band. Now, come on, who's where are these transmissions going? Electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss. Composition of
Wow.
meteoric iron 66, rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which is very rare and hard to find in the Earth's crust. Now, this next one is interesting. Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating that the evolved elements did not come from Earth.
You're talking about the components of the implant.
Yeah, yes.
And
That's it
they
down.
also used to say somehow they could take the power from your nervous system that powers them up too.
Yeah. gold spheres which have unknown function. I mean, these are just metallic, oh, listen, metallic caverns that are no larger than the diameter of one atom. Resistance to ordinary cutting techniques such as metallic sawing or severing with a cutting instrument. One of the specimens had to be cut with a laser. I mean, so guys, there is proof. These damn implants, where the hell are they coming from? Who's implanting them? There's
Where
something
wonder
going on.
where do they find them mostly? In
Uh, well, like Whitley Strieber has one behind his ear,
Mhm.
which he says it communicates with him. It absolutely communicates with him. It's helped him write books.
Well, and they
Okay.
say they put them in their sinuses and stuff too. I think that
Yeah, they
mostly in
up
the
in the
head.
side, yeah, up in the upper portion, up in here. Uh, in the arm, the legs. They're just about any place, just about any place. Not one particular place, but certainly they're there.
Well, once you get one, there's no problem finding you if they want to grab you.
Exactly, exactly.
They can find you real easy.
You know, again, talking about the bunkers, and I said that, in our study that we did, the omega-3, that these people do not suffer from fantasy proneness
Right.
at all. Uh, and then people talk about false memory syndrome. Well, guess what? The American Psychological Association or any other mainstream psychological diagnostic system has either ratified or proven such a diagnosis. And then the other big one, they say, well, it's sleep paralysis. Well, two
That's
thirds,
crap.
2/3 of all the cases, whether in the bedroom or not, did not involve sleep paralysis. So, I mean, it's just amazing that there's so much information out there, and it's so convenient for these debunkers. And I think you haven't heard a lot from the debunkers of late because of all these congressional hearings and people coming forward and say, guess
Right.
what?
That job's getting riskier as you go. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And some of the stuff, like a lot of times when the people are abducted, they'll say they went through a wall or something like that. And I think that
Oh, yeah.
if you what they do is they bring you up to a higher dimensional frequency where your density is lower and you really can go through the wall, that kind of stuff.
It's an amazing technology for sure. And these are, whether you're going through the wall, through the roof, uh, it's phenomenal how this is possible. But evidently, if you do, it's a lot of it does have to do with frequency.
Well, and when you're dealing with density, the higher frequency, the lower the density,
Yeah.
So there was a case that I'm trying to track down where the individual was teenager, was abducted, and they took him through a window that was closed with wooden slats and glass. And the guy's holding on to a sheet, and the sheet is
Oh,
trailing him.
okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
once he gets through the window, he lets go of the sheet, and the
The
sheet re
stays in a window.
it comes back to its original time space reality where it was. So the next day they come and the sheet is hanging halfway out the window and halfway in the window, and it's molecularly bonded to the wood and the glass in the window.
Do you recollect the name of that person?
Well, I'm trying to find them. Well, I'll share them with you when I get
Well,
them.
okay. Well, here's the deal. I think I know who you're talking about. It's
I,
Jim Witten. It's Jim
I love to
Wittenberger.
talk to that guy about that. Have you heard
Jim
that?
Jim Wittenberger is, a matter of fact,
He's
he's
he's like our age now, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
was when he was a kid. Yeah, I'd love to
yeah,
talk
yeah,
to him.
yeah, yeah. Jim Wittenberger. Yeah, he's not in great health at the moment, from what I understand, because uh, the Alien Experience is a video that's out on UFO TV, and I'm in that video actually, and Jim is also noted in that video, where he talks about his experience. Um, that is matter of fact, I got Linda Moulton Howe involved with it as well, because he claimed that there was a general that was involved with bringing he and his mother onto Wright-Patterson. He was living near
Yeah, his mom
Wright-Patterson,
worked there or something, right? Yeah.
and so. there supposedly was somebody killed, a military personnel that came into the room that shouldn't have been there when this alien was in there trying to wipe their memories. And he gave me the name of the general, and so I had Linda Howe try to track this name down, and we couldn't find anything. And that the problem with the case has been corroboration, trying to get, and evidently there was an article in the paper about this whole thing, and that
Mm.
paper, you can't find it anymore. It's gone.
Of
It's
course,
like
yeah.
somebody just came in and took it all. Um, yeah.
Yeah, well, after we shut down here, I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna want to talk to that guy. I've been
Well,
looking to find him, but I've been
yeah, I can give you his phone number.
cool.
I think
Don't
I
put it
have
on
it.
here. Wait till
No,
we
no, no, no. I won't. I
don't
won't do
hang up.
that. Don't want 80
There'll be
bazillion
300
people.
people calling
Yeah,
him. Yeah, no,
yeah.
thanks.
All
But
right.
yeah, but that's the thing that the sheet is like molecularly bonded into that sort of tells you that they changed the
Yeah,
dimension, the density of it.
yeah, yeah. That was when I heard that, I was like, holy moly, that's amazing.
So you heard that from him, not from what I
Oh
you.
yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh no,
okay,
I heard it
yeah.
directly from him. I mean, yeah,
Well, the another thing that David Gresh, what's happening now is these Wall Street guys are starting to get interested in this because
yeah.
they know they're going to make some serious money when it as it you know. And apparently David Gresh went up and had a meeting with some Wall Street people in New York a few weeks ago. And so he goes in there and he goes, he had a picture of a saucer type craft. He says, here it is. He goes, this thing measures 40 feet across. But when you go in it,
It's a lot
it's like
bigger.
stepping inside a football stadium,
Isn't that amazing?
spatial disorientation.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and by the way, the power it's powerful. It can put a terawatt of power out. Terawatt of power will power 1,000 houses.
Mm.
And so if you're an investment guy, you're thinking, oh man, we get a hold of that thing, boy, we can make some money on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So I think that's part of what's rolling this out too, is in a good way and a bad way, because I
Mhm.
think that you start getting these Wall Street people involved and the propensity for them to make deals with some of these guys to sort of continue to keep quiet about it and keep giving us the technology so we can keep making money on it. There's that side of it's too, you know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
Wall Street guys aren't necessarily worried about the long-term effects for humanity. But
Yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is really fun. We got to do this again.
Oh, you got it.
I'm glad to
My
catch up
pleasure.
with you. And of course, I think I said Les is on our advisory board for a really good reason. He's pretty resourceful. And
And Richard is on our advisory board.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But let's I really appreciate it. Just want to thank you for doing this. It was really fun. I'm sure the viewers are going to love it. And we'll look forward to doing it again soon. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Please check out our website at AEROPS.site. You'll be able to find current posts, new information, and a list of advisory board members. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.